Once upon a time, there was a king who considered himself the most intelligent and clever man in the world. During the day, when his courtiers praised and admired him, he was happy. However, at night, when he was alone and no one was there to praise him, he became fearful and thought to himself, "Is there anyone smarter and wiser than me?" Eventually, he couldn't bear it anymore. He summoned his advisors and said, "Go and find the smartest person in my land and bring them to me. I will challenge them, and if they lose to me, they must be my slave for life." The advisors went, searched, and found a few intelligent individuals. They were willing to compete with the king only for the promised reward. The advisors, feeling desperate, one night arrived at a lush forest. As they proceeded, they stumbled upon an old and poor village. The villagers were not lazy, but because the king had taken control of all the green valleys and forests, extracting heavy taxes from them each year, they had become impoverished. It didn't matter to the king how these villagers paid their taxes, even though they were poor and had nothing. However, they warmly welcomed the king's advisors, cooked delicious meals for them, and entertained them with plenty of stories. The advisors gradually realized that a man named David was better at solving riddles and recalling verses and events than the others. When they saw him, they whispered to each other, perhaps he would agree to compete with the king. David initially rejected their offer, but with their strong insistence, he finally accepted and said, "I will come with you, but you must like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel." They agreed and took him to the king. The king said, "Do you think you are the most intelligent and clever person?" David replied, "Yes, absolutely. Cleverness is my expertise." The king said, "Then you must try to deceive me. Otherwise, you will be my slave for life." He added, "I'm sorry for you, because I am wiser and more clever than you." David said, "I didn't bring any tools with me." The king asked, "What tools are you talking about?" David said, "My tools for work. I need them to deceive you." The king said, "Go and fetch them." David said, "But it's not as simple as you think. There are many, and if you're wise, you'll understand that I need a few carts to bring them all." The king asked, "How many carts do you need?" And after a pause continued, "Take them from the stable, but return all of them afterward." David said, "Yes, I will load my tools in the carts and bring them in 5 or 6 months." The king asked, 5 or 6 months? David said, "Yes, and even that might be too short. I said I have a lot of tools, and to bring them all, I need a considerable number of carts." The king said, "Very well, just try to come back sooner." When David received the carts, he said, "By the way, I must mention 2 more things. First, if I manage to deceive you, what will you do? And second, please ask people to mention the name of their country in the comments." The king laughed and said, "But you can't deceive me." David said, "I know I can't, but suppose I can." The king said, "Fine. What do you want?" David said, "All the things that you no longer need or have lost from now on." The king agreed, and in haste, David went to the village. He called the villagers and gave each one a horse and a cart. They worked together, planted and harvested enough produce for 10 years. When they stored all the goods in the warehouse, David said, "Now bring all your musk bags." When they brought the musk bags, David filled them with air and placed them in the carts. He then headed towards the palace. The king saw him and said, "If you're ready, let's begin." David replied, "First, I need to unpack my tools." At that moment, the king's black dog entered the room, sniffed David's feet, and David, lowering his head, quietly whispered in the dog's ear. The dog licked David's ear. David, with a loud voice, cried, "This is bad news! Where is my hat? Where is my coat? If possible, give me your fastest horse for my wife. Yesterday, when I left her, she was healthy, but now she is dying." The king exclaimed, "How did you find out about this?" David replied, "Your own dog gave me this news." Everyone looked at the king anxiously. The king ordered the fastest horse to be given to David. He rode off, and after a while, he sold the horse at a good price and bought a black donkey and returned to the palace. The king asked, "So where is the horse?" David said, "Horse? Your Majesty, you must be joking. I am a poor man, I don't have a horse. The horse you gave me turned into a donkey." The king said, "This is impossible." David said, "Possible or impossible, I am right here, just like the day I left. Why do you, a wise and knowledgeable man, speak like this?" The king looked at the ground and the donkey's bridle. Then he said, "I can only say that throughout the time I rode it, it never turned into a donkey. Forget all this. Let's start the competition." David said, "I've already started the competition with you twice. Once with your dog and once with your horse." The king asked, "How?" David said, "Very simple. I told you that your dog informed me about my wife's illness, and you believed me. Now, how can a dog speak or a horse turn into a black donkey?" The king remained silent. David said, "Now give me my reward." The king, realizing that he wasn't as intelligent as he thought, laughed and said, "All right. I promise to give you anything I didn't use or lost during the competition. Tell me, what is it?" David replied, "First, tell your fans to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Second, I want the forest and lands surrounding the village." The king laughed and granted David the forest and lands around the village. David returned to the village and lived the rest of his life proudly. The king understood that he wasn't as wise as he had thought. From then on, he no longer feared the nights and slept peacefully. If you are interested in this type of stories, you can watch these two videos as well.